Hello, my name is Michelle, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. On the podcast today is Amy Ferrer of Miko and Boone Home. Amy and I have been friends for quite a few years, back since probably 2013, when I met her through another colleague. And Amy she is just one of a kind, and I'm so excited to bring this podcast to you today. What we're going to talk about is her journey. She started off as a drapery workroom, as you're going to hear, and you're going to get to hear a little bit about what she does now. She has a heart for designers. I don't think I've ever met anybody who expressed their passion. Maybe there are other people passionate, but maybe not any I've met who've expressed it quite this way. She is super passionate about loving on, supporting, and encouraging designers. And window treatment experts and others in the industry. And Amy has also created her business to do just that, with offering trade resources, purchasing support for small design firms to large design firms. And you're just going to hear a little bit about her story today and how she acted with courage even when she felt fear. So I just hope you enjoy it and feel blessed and encouraged at the end. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Amy, welcome to Profit is a Choice.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I'm excited to have you here too. We can see each other, of course, and nobody else can see us. And we're both like grinning ear to ear because, we've only been trying for the last, 6 to 8 months to coordinate our times to be able to both be in the same place so that we could talk at the same time. So thank you for working out your schedule for me and being so flexible.
Oh my gosh, thank you for being flexible. Thank you for not putting up with me, but for having the patience to wait for me.
So. That's right. No problem. So, Amy, I told our listeners a little bit about you in the opening bio, but I just want to start because what I find so interesting about our conversation that we know that we're kind of going to have today is that, and I've known you for a while now, you didn't start off as a designer. So your first career within this umbrella of interior design was something that is very different. And it was actually the same way that I came into it. So could you just start by telling our listeners a little bit about your journey, where you started?
Isn't it so neat too, how we start in one place and where we end up in another place, and yet we still don't even know where our final ending is going to be. But for me, I moved here in 1989. And I moved from Jacksonville's a large city, but I'm from a small city. And I thought Atlanta was just a big city and would know more than I would know. And so I hired a company to come out and do some window treatments for me. And it was for 2 rooms, and it was almost $4,000. And back in 1989, that's a lot of money. And I absolutely hated it. And I believe before he pulled out of my driveway, I was getting the drill and unscrewing the screws and taking it all down because I disliked it so much. And I was just so disheartened because it was a lot of money and I really wanted to love them and I didn't. So
I just have to ask, was it the fabric that you didn't love or the style that you didn't love, or both?
All of it. All of it. It was a fabric, it was a style.
The way they hung, probably?
I didn't even get to that point. I don't even know if it was hung properly at that point because I wasn't as educated as I am now to know if it was hung correctly or not. All I knew is I didn't like the style. It was nothing that I would choose. And I let them kind of run with it, just thinking this was a big city. I was a lot younger and they know more than I do, kind of thing. Even though I've always had the love for interior design and love for things that are pretty ever since I was a little girl. And so I went out and bought a $179 machine at Hancock Fabrics. I don't even know if they're in business now or not, but just from the grace of God, I don't know how, but I knew how to sew without sewing ever before, and I could make patterns of everything needed for our home. And so I made my own window treatments and replaced those. And then my neighbors saw it and friends saw it, and then they wanted it. And from there, it ended up being a business. And I had up to 3 or 4 people working on my terrace level in my basement. And we had 2 huge rooms for the commercial machines and the work tables. And it was a lot of fun. I think my favorite part was going out to see the clients and coming up with the design and offering, to them my experience on, or I wouldn't even say I had experience at the beginning, but what I liked, and then they ended up loving. So yeah, that's how I began in my career in interior design.
Yeah, mine was, very similar in that I wanted to sew something for my son's nursery. And at the time, I couldn't find it in the colorway because everything was Williamsburg blue and mauve, if you remember back in.
That's exactly what I had. I
Yes,
didn't want to say.
back in 1994 and 1995. Yep. And I remember saying to my husband, I just need to make something because I wanted the brights, the royal blues and the oranges and yellows and pinks. I just wanted really bright colors. That is not what was on the market. You couldn't find it anywhere. Everything was that muted, subdued. And now I have a visceral response to that Williamsburg blue and that mauve. It makes me feel nauseous. But anyway, in 95, I couldn't, that was all you could really buy. And so my husband took a friend at work, an older woman, and they, instead of going to Hancock, they went to Sears and bought me a Kenmore sewing machine. And at the time, I think he really thought I was going to make clothing. And so I would say it was probably a sewing machine dedicated a little more to the clothing aspect. But long story short, he brought it home. And I think I told you the other day when we were prepping for the podcast, the first thing I made was a slip cover for a sofa. And he was like, Michelle, why would you start with a slip cover? Like, couldn't you start with a pillow? And you know me now. And then you add pregnant brain on top of that. And I was like, all indignant. And I'm like, but I don't need a pillow. I need a slip cover for that sofa. So why wouldn't I start with what I needed? And I know he just thought, just let it go. But like you, I was able to pick it up. It made sense. I just looked at things. I could deconstruct them. I could draw a pattern. I could sit down and figure it out. I was great in geometry in school, and it's just a lot of the math and the geometry.
Yeah, I love math too. But I remember like it was yesterday on my foyer. It was like the longest part of the floor, where I can just lay out long panels and have it all straight, and had those little, I don't know if you remember them, the fold up cardboards with, with all the lines. That's how I started. So
yeah, but like you, I didn't stay there.
No.
And so things shifted and changed. Tell us about your journey. So where did you go after that? I know you said you loved going out and working with the clients and talking to the clients, and that's the retail sales. That really is being a window treatment designer. And I want to make that distinction because a lot of people think that they don't do design work, yet they're out there designing soft furnishings. That may be all they design, but if you're selling retail and you're designing it, then you are a window treatment designer. So you would see some of that. And then what happened?
Well, I would go out to the client's home and they would ask me, design advice. And I just thought, wow, they're asking me this. And I don't know, I just could tell them off the bat, this is what you need to do, da, 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 da. And it just rolled off my tongue. And so from there, I also worked with designers, and there was a designer friend that I had mentioned that I wanted to go into design. And she says, I need some help. Why don't you come work with me? And so the person that I am, I let go of everyone and I sold all the equipment, sold the table. It was just, work on faith. This is the direction I'm going.
You were committed.
Well, I had my mind made up. I knew I loved design, and I knew that I had such a strong passion for that. And sewing wasn't my passion. The passion was making the patterns and meeting the clients and offering them design advice and showing them fabrics and trim and things like that. I love creating that. I love making things beautiful. So I knew I had that passion. And for someone to offer me such, I don't know, just to offer me an opportunity to go into the design business, I was not going to look back. So I was committed. That's just how I am. Okay, let's put that in the back and let's just keep moving forward. And so from that, we had one sales call. And then she decided to go back to her love, which was painting and art. And so I was like, oh no, what am I going to do now? Because I don't have a commercial.
So let me get this straight. Please come join my company. I'm so busy. We can work together. We go on one sales call. Oh, by the way, I'm going to go back to my other love while you now start with your new love.
Exactly. And I'm so happy that she did that, because
Sure.
I feel that if you have a burning desire in your heart and a passion in your heart, you should go for it. And I shouldn't have held her back, so
Right.
I'm proud of her for doing that. For me, I was scared. I was like, oh my gosh. But I did know some lines that she did purchase from. And so that was helpful. But it's a little bit different now than it was back in 1989, back in 1990, in that time frame, or 20 years ago. People didn't really talk about or share the resources like they do now. And so I really did have to learn with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of failures that ended up being life lessons. So, I don't look at failures or things that go wrong as, I said it was a failure, but I really don't look at it as a failure. I look at it as a way to learn and to grow. So,
right.
Yeah.
And, because I started my workroom back in, 2000. And even then, we were just really using the internet a whole lot. We just had not, it was still pretty new I would say for the average homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
And finding information, finding people to connect with, that's what started kind of opening up conversation for sharing. And I remember, Amy, when I started my workroom, I didn't know one other person who did it. I knew no one who I don't know where. I even think to this day, what was I thinking? Because I didn't know where window treatments came from. Like, are they like Cabbage Patch dolls and they just spring up somewhere? Like, where did they come from? Now, of course, I know, but back then I was so naive. I just didn't know. I didn't know that a workroom was even a term. If somebody had asked me what I did, I would say I sew curtains or I sew valances. Like, I didn't even know the terminology to know who I was and what I was doing. I just knew that my people in my neighborhood needed those. I could make them and they were giving me money to do it. I mean, that's like all I knew when I started.
Michelle, I'm the same way. I had no idea, either. All I know is it just ended up turning into a business, and I didn't know there were other businesses out there like that,
me
other than companies.
And I remember when the first time I met people that were in the interior design industry, designers and window treatments and all that. I remember my eyes just glazed over, and I was like, "You're my people. Like, you're my people." We have a friend in common, Lee, and Lee was my very first designer that I sewed for. And we happened to go to church and be in Sunday school together. And we were talking one day, and she made a comment about being a designer. And I said, "Oh, I sew curtains." And she's like, "Oh, I need curtains sewn." And next thing you know, I'm moving all my furniture out of my den and laying out, like you, down the foyer. I'm like laying fabric out everywhere and daring, my kids and the dogs, nobody get near it. But it was a super great learning experience, not just for the window treatment piece that we both did, but in how to run a company and how to run a business and how to employ people and how to work with people. And that is a part of business that we get to, as you said, we're not where we started, but we're not where we're going to end up for most of us. But that kind of learning, we get to pick those lessons up, those life lessons that you just shared about learning, and move them with us so that our businesses morph and change and grow. the entire time. So when you realized, Amy, that the workroom was not satisfying this passion by itself, right? You knew the parts of it that you really enjoyed and the other parts that you were not quite so passionate about. And then you branched out into design. Did you ever think about quitting after she quit? Or did you just think, okay, roll up your sleeves, girl. Now what are we going to do?
Not part of my nature. I just I don't even think of that. I just think of, okay, how am I going to make this work? And how can I keep pushing forward? And, you know, it's just not part of my personality to say.
So how did you make it work that very first moment when she said,
You know,
goodbye,
she's
I'm
so
going to go
sweet
back to
too.
I'm sure she would still be willing to help you, and I'm sure she did.
Yeah, she gave me a couple clients, and from there, especially when you're starting out, things take a lot longer, you know, than when you're a seasoned designer. I feel, you know, I'm still trying to figure it all out, figuring out the processes and things like that. Of course, I didn't have processes in place. I had to figure that out as I went along. And so I felt, you know, when people say they're busy, you know, some designers may be busy with one client. Other designers may be busy with 10 clients. You know, it just depends. For me, a couple clients then kept me busy enough. And from that, it just grew. And it was kind of like the window treatment business. You know, someone finds out you're a designer, they see your work, and then next thing you know, you have another new client. And so that's how it kind of grew. I was blessed that way.
Very organically, a lot of word of mouth.
Yeah, I believe in organic growth a lot. So.
Yeah, right, same. So question for you though. So when you left the workroom business and closed that down, and I got to say, this is funny because you and I've worked together since 2013. And I don't think we've ever gone this deep into this conversation. I mean, I knew bits and pieces of it, but I'm just like, okay, it's just like just sitting down with like a best friend and going like, tell me.
Okay, let me just tell you, with you saying that, it is so funny because I was going over some of this with my husband. He was like, wait a minute, you never told me that you went on one call and you sold everything and you didn't, he never told me that. And I said, well, you know, I don't know. I just kind of just did what I needed to do. So, you know, it's funny that you say that because I'm married to somebody for 20 years and he didn't know it either. So,
yeah, I have a lot of podcast folks who join me on here, and they'll say that they love, I send questions before we meet because there are certain things I want to know about. Right? I'm curious. And almost every time they go, wow, I hadn't thought about that, or it was a good reminder of how far I've come or what I've learned. And it usually is a really interesting, I would say, exercise to do, is to go back and remember. So even if our listeners are out there, I encourage you, go all the way back and really remember where you started, because it gives you a different appreciation for where you are in these life lessons. But
especially those days that designers have when they feel a lot of times too with design and too with window treatments or things like that, it can be a personal thing, right? And so some days are harder than other days. And some days you may have a client that makes you question yourself and your ability. And I think that this is a good practice to go back and look and say, okay, you know, I'm questioning my ability as a designer right now, but let me look at all the achievements and all the things that I've done thus far, you know.
Right.
And as I tell my designers, you know, look in the mirror and say, you know, you're a darn good designer. You know, do that every day if you have to, and just, you know, give yourself a pat on the back because you have come a long way. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
So here's my big question though, out of all that.
Okay.
All right. So you leave the workroom business, which is doing really well. I mean, you know, I know that you helped launch some others. So you got, you know, other people launched just the way that you were kind of launched. You closed everything down, sold it, moved on. But because you went into business with a friend at the time thinking you were going to go work for her, it didn't require that you create a business plan to step out in faith. It just demanded that you stop the business you were in and then say yes to another. But her walking away meant that you now have to create some type of plan. How did you do the longer version of I'm just going to plan what's in front of me and figure it out as I go? Or did you stop and do a formal business writing process?
It's kind of like that's a good question, because it's kind of like the workroom. I really didn't know what I was getting into, you know, and it was kind of one of those things where I didn't know what processes to put in place, because I didn't know what processes there were, you know, really any of that. I knew QuickBooks. I love QuickBooks, and that's what I used with the workroom. And so that I knew, the financial part, I knew the profit and all of that. But as far as the processes that we do as designers, that was one of those things where I said that there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It was that, you know, because
Right.
I didn't know what I was getting into.
Well, and if you had known what you were getting into, you might have taken a little bit more of a deep breath before you jumped. You might have still jumped. I think, knowing you now, I think you would have still jumped, but I think you would have taken an extra breath when you did it. So that very first moment, year after that first job where your friend walked away, did you find yourself profitable that very first year, or did you find that that was a build year where you really had to pour some funds into this fledgling business that just you weren't planning on being fledgling and alone, you know, because it takes startup to start, even if it's just investing in getting books and investing in figuring out the process. I mean, that blood, sweat, and tears comes with a price.
Right.
The very first year or so. What did you find that to look like for you?
I would say that, you know, in our industry, same as the, you know, in the design industry, whether you're a workroom or a designer, I feel like we have, you know, the months that are busier than others. And so the profit, you know, is sometimes better than other months. You know, we know January and February is not always the best to us, in the summers when people take off to go on vacations and things like that. I learned that, you know, as I got into the design part of it, that it was the same as the workroom. But as far as profit goes, I would say that I've always been profitable, because I'm like you, I love numbers, and I'm not going to work for free. So I would say that I was always profitable, but it wasn't until I met you that I really, in the, you know, the profit is a choice and all of that, everything that you taught me as my business coach, that really is when I dove deeper into the processes and the profits and everything else.
Right. Kind of more of the analysis piece. I mean, that's one of the things that drew me to you when we first met, outside of your bubbly personality. And you were just so honest when we first met, like, okay, here it is. Here's where I am, and here's what I'm working with. But you are a spreadsheet queen, right?
I love processes now.
You love process and you love spreadsheets.
And I love numbers.
You love numbers. And I was like, oh my gosh, here's a girl who loves numbers probably equally as much as I do. But you're right. So profitability, you had one idea of profitability, and your idea of profitability expanded when we started working together to realize all of the choices that you were making in the business, or that your team was making, and how it ultimately affected profit. That's good, because, and it's the same for me. I mean, my business has shifted and morphed, and, you know, even realizing the choices that I make, what is the larger impact from that?
Right. I would honestly say, and I'm not just saying this because we're doing a podcast together, but, you know, anyone that knows me, that I've talked to, that knows that I work with you, knows I would not be here today without you. I can honestly say that. And talking about just business and processes and profit and things like that, it was when I met you through a friend. We went to lunch. It was Lindsay, and we went to lunch, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just so overwhelmed. Da, da, da. You know how this industry can be. And she goes, you need to talk to my friend Michelle. You know, she's my business coach. And so that's when I met you. And it was when I met you, and is when I really it was just everything, just working on every process and fine tuning it. I mean, as a company, we look at our processes every day. And if there's a problem or a hole in our process, we are quick to fix, okay, this is what happened. How can we prevent this again? Because this did not feel good. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so we're always looking at a better way of doing that. So,
One thing I remember us doing is going through eMyth Revisited together. And you showed up at one of our meetings with your computer and you're like, okay, now here's the entrepreneur and here's the manager and here's the technician. You had it all laid out. You had this whole firm, and it wasn't a picture of where your company was right then. It was a picture of the next step of where you were going. And I always loved that because you were always very forward thinking and always willing to, okay, so let's look at the process. Where did it break down? What happened? And able to take constructive criticism to those processes. And I think, to your point, Amy, sometimes we're so busy trying to deflect or to put up a shield or a guard to not look at a process or not look at something that's serving us, either because we're too busy, because that happens to all of us. Like when people tell me, I don't have time to look at my financials, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you better stop and make time. But either not having time and not understanding what we're looking at, fear, holding us back from looking at it, maybe fear of not having a skill set to adjust or not knowing who the right person is. But that's what I love about watching your journey in business, is that even if there was fear, you acted anyway. I might not know what the next step's going to be, but let's look at it. Let's dig into it. Let's uncover what are our opportunities here, and then moving forward. And I think that's been what's really helped your business change and grow and more. And what I see work for other clients that I work with, that ability to say, I'm willing to take a step back from my business and look at it as an entity separate from myself. And now what needs to happen in that business?
Well, I'm a big Strength Finders fan, and I do that with all my team members as well. And one of my top 5 is futuristic. And so even though I am present and loving the present, I'm loving our conversation, I love being with my family, my friends, or what have you, I am present at the moment, but I am always looking down the road. And I think that's a lot with a lot of entrepreneurs and people that own their businesses. Business is always on our mind, and we're always looking at ways. I hope that everyone's always looking at a way to improve it and make it better. At least that's what we do.
Yeah, same. So when you and I first met, you were in a home office on the terrace level, and you had staff that were employees that were working with you, and you were all down on the terrace level. And then you made a big decision to step outside of that. An opportunity came up for a retail space, and you took that opportunity.
Well,
You also opened up a trade resource center at the same time. So you opened up to the Trade Resource Center because there wasn't anything quite like that in the area of town that you were serving. Retail store, still doing design. I mean, that's a big business model shift from doing design out of the terrace level of your home. Tell me a little bit about that shift and that journey.
That's a really good question. For me, I'm a big believer of this, and designers that I mentor and help and talk with, and this is my friend and business coach as well. I feel that if you have something tugging in your heart and it won't go away, then you need to follow it. And I remember looking for a store, for a spot, for a space. I guess it was over a year.
Right.
And things just kept falling through, every place that I went to. And I vividly remember this. I don't know if you remember talking to me about this, but I said, Michelle, maybe God is trying to tell me not to do it. And you would say, do you still feel in your heart that you need to move forward? And I said, yes. And you said, then keep moving forward. And so that's what I kept doing. And it was just so ironic. My daughter, who's an artist in town, Britt Bass Turner, and she was moving from Buckhead to Roswell, and there was a spot 2 doors down from her that was opening up that she told me about, and that's where we ended up landing. And little south of Canton Street. So we absolutely love it, love our landlord and love the space. And we opened about over 4 years ago, and the main thing was to yes, improve getting design business, but a big part of it was the designer resource center. I wanted to have an opportunity to be with other designers, because I know what it's like to be alone at home and how lonely it is. And the one thing that I before I had a designer on staff was just not having someone to bounce back ideas with, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that, just something, just to have someone else around, that's a creative and a designer to help one another. And I really wanted that so badly, and that was a main reason of opening Miko and Boone Home.
I also know that and I do remember that day, by the way,
You do?
because, sometimes we are feeling this tug, this pull. We've prayed over it. We've thought about it. We've done our due diligence. And then it seems like the doors are shutting. And sometimes we assign who's shutting the doors to the wrong person. Do you know what I mean?
I would say they were slamming.
They were. Because there were a couple of times where you were told you have the space, and then it was pulled right out from under you, to the point that we were almost in shock.
Yeah.
You've got to be kidding me. This cannot be happening again. And I, sometimes it may very well mean, for those that are listening, that is not the path that you should take. But your desire and drive for that space, for having that space, never was dampened and never went away. And that's why we knew that, like I kept saying to you, I remember this, Amy, if that's not what God wants for you, He's going to remove the desire from your heart. So ask Him, if you don't want this from me, remove the desire from my heart, shift my desire, change it. Tell me I'm supposed to be in my terrace level, and I'll be back in my terrace level. And sometimes he strengthens us by putting us and allowing us to walk through some difficult things, because then when you got the space, you knew that it was the right space.
It really is. I mean, just being 2 doors down from my daughter was amazing. And, the strip that we're on, everyone on the strip are just the most awesome entrepreneurs and business owners. We all get along so great. There's not one nasty person here. It's just a really nice place to be like home away from home.
And if you had gotten one of the other spaces, I don't know that you would have had, you would have had a completely different experience.
I agree.
Right? It's kind of like looking for a house. I think I've told you, my son just purchased a house, and we've been looking at a lot of houses, and we found one that he really liked, and we thought that was going to be the one. And then we found a cracked foundation. And so you're just moving around, and he finally found the house, put the offer down. It was on the market one day. He bought the house and put the contract the same day it went on the market. And but it's because he had looked at so many and had so many doors slammed, so that when he found it, he knew. And then he could look back at all the slammed doors differently than it felt like when he was in the slamming mode. And it was like, I'm so glad those doors shut, right? I'm so thankful for that. So I hope this is also an encouraging word for somebody who may be listening, who's wanting something out of their business, or has this drive and this desire, and it's not yet come to fruition. It could just very well be a timing issue. So, my suggestion is just keep praying about it, and ask for the desire to be removed if it's not in your best interest.
Right. And not to feel discouraged. It's so easy to feel discouraged. And I know I was discouraged a lot, but at the other end of it, I know I'm right where I need to be, and I landed right where I need to be. And you don't see that while you're going through it. But ultimately, at the end, just like your son finding the best house, I'm sure this is probably the best out of all that he saw. And I know that my location and where I'm at is the best that I did see, but going through it, I didn't. Right. And so if anyone's out there and going through the same situation, I would say don't feel discouraged. It's hard not to, but there's going to be something fantastic for you at the end.
Yeah, I would agree. So, Amy, one of the things that you've done and that you are so I mean, I don't know that I've ever met anybody this passionate about the same topic. I mean, everybody's passionate about helping, but you are so passionate about taking care of other designers. You have such a love for this industry. I mean, it oozes out of you. It permeates every conversation that you have about the industry. Is how can I support you? What do you see happen? It's the futuristic piece. There's this mothering piece, I think you mentioned the other day, it's that desire to not have somebody else feel the way you felt when you have something that could be helpful for them. So you remember how it felt to start and to not have the resources, not have the process, not know where to look and what to do and where to go, and not even know how to get help, right? To very much do the blood, sweat, tears kind of thing. And you have such a desire to not have another person feel that way when you have the ability to help them.
You know, when I wanted to open the retail store, the design firm, and the Trade Resource Center, one of the big parts of the Trade Resource Center at the beginning, okay, I had no idea I would feel the way I feel now with designers and the industry. I love design and I love our community. I really was like in a bubble. I wasn't even in the community on the terrace level in my home. But I just wanted a trade resource that had different vendors than the average vendor. And so we do, you know, it's hard as a designer to meet those minimums. And, you know, $1,000 here, $5,000 here, you know, $2,000 here, you know, it adds up and it's hard when you're on your own, and then only to have it lost the next year because you didn't have that same client with that aesthetic, or maybe they couldn't afford that, you know. So I wanted to have an opportunity for other designers to have the vendor access that I worked hard to get. That was really the original, and for everyone to feel welcomed when they came in. That's why we put home on Miko and Boone, home. And I tell all the designers that come through here is I want them to feel at home. Don't ask if you want a drink. Don't ask about, do whatever. This is your home. I want them to feel like they're at home. And so it was really important for me for them to feel comfortable. But it wasn't until after working here and meeting designers that it's just, and you know, workroom, the WCAA, I love all the ladies there and they come and meet here as well. But, you know, just, we have that instant connection. We're all creatives, and I didn't realize that until I had my store. And it's so, I don't know. We have this. I started Gather for Design right when I opened it. It's an educational event, and we also have, you know, different Gather for Designs like our Facebook and High Point highlights and things like that. But it wasn't until that, you know, just getting to know designers and meeting them that I realized I really have a true passion and love. It's just grown so much. You're right. I mean, I can't hide it. It's just,
you cannot hide it. I think I told you this one time. So I was doing something. It was like a Saturday, or it was a Saturday morning, and I was in my workout clothes, and my husband Joel was in his workout clothes, and we were driving around in the car, and I wanted something or needed something or had left something at the store, and I swing by, and Christine met us, and she was just like, "Hi, how are you?" Of course, she knew me, and she's meeting my husband, and he still to this day calls you Sweet Amy, and he says, "And Christine, the girl that met us, she was so nice." I don't think you know, men can be a little weird walking into some of the stores like that. And I'm dragging him into this beautifully done interior design store. And I know he's thinking, oh my gosh, Michelle, what are you doing? Like, he would much rather be at Cabela's or at, you know, somewhere with hunting and fishing equipment or outdoor stuff. It's like, come on in here with me. But she even made a guy that didn't really want to be in the store feel like he wanted to be in the store. And I think that is a testament to you and to the way that you've built your team, to make everybody feel welcome and to make them feel comfortable, because it can be intimidating walking into some interior design stores. If it's your first time that you've worked with an interior designer, if it's an interior designer, you and I both know there are a lot of designers in our area that are very new, very, very new. And they walk in and they're shaking a little bit, like, am I going to be accepted here? And I love the way that you and your entire staff just like meets them where they are and brings them in and sits them down and, hey, what's your name and what's your story and what do you need and how can I help you? And then I also love how when you've brought this group of designers together for Gathered for Design, they start to do it for each other so that you don't have to be the only one giving. They're giving to each other. So you've created like this bigger version of kindness and sharing than any one or two people could have done by themselves.
You know, the beauty of it is it just, the designers, if they listen to this, that have come together for design, and the ones that I've met, they know how I am. I love Gather for Design. We do it once a month. It's an educational event. And we bring vendors in or people in our industry. We've even had you there before. But it's like Christmas to me. I could not be happier than to walk in and see all my designer colleagues and just look around, and I just love them all. And what's so beautiful about it is I've also been able to, in the last 4 years or so, been able to see all these relationships cultivate within each other. So now we have like best friends that they would not have met had it not been for this design community that I've been working on building. I just love our little community. And as far as our team, the one thing that they do know about what I expect, and luckily none of them have to fake it. I mean, because they truly are good, kind people. And that is, I want everybody that walks through that door to feel better when they walk back out that door. You know, it's fairly important for me for everyone to feel welcomed. And when I see new designers and they're uncertain, they may not feel like they know as much or what have you, you know, I just, either I do hug them or I want to hug them. I don't know. I probably do hug them, you know, and I just let them know, you know, hey, I started there. We all started there. You know, you're not alone.
We all start somewhere.
We've all been there. And I think a lot of seasoned designers, hopefully they recognize that and know that. But if they don't, just stop and take a minute. And for some of the newer designers, you know, help mentor, you know, give them advice. You know, we've all
a hug.
Yeah, give them a hug.
we can all use a hug.
That's right.
That's right. So, Amy, not only do you do that, but you do offer the ability for them to purchase through you, so that they can take advantage of the minimums that you have already met and the relationships that you have already built with vendors, and you have the samples and you have all of that. And it gives them a space to come and work, to be surrounded by beautiful things, even to be able to ask questions of you and your staff, you know, on occasion when it's needed. And then to be able to have a purchasing power that maybe they either can't attain yet, or a purchasing power that they can't have by themselves.
Right. So we look at ourselves as purchasing specialists. You know, we have a dedicated staff just for that. And so we have over 100 vendor lines that we have stocking vendors accounts with. And so we meet the minimum so they don't have to. And so we sell to designers throughout the country. And we also, we're planning a trip to New York. We just came back from Boston. We're looking at a trip to California, kind of everywhere, because I want to meet all these designers too that we work with. And it's funny, we're as close to the designers out of state that we've never met as we are to designers in state, because we talk to them frequently. They purchase from us and things like that. But we would love for designers to feel like we're part of their team. And, you know, so we want to be a part of their team if and when they need anything, or they may have their own lines, but we'll take whatever,
Right, because sometimes if we're honest here, it's not like it's got to be everything. But let's say they have that one client that has that one aesthetic that is not what they would normally do, and they
Mm-hmm.
need to purchase through a vendor that they don't have access to. That's the beauty of working through purchasing specialists, to be able to help them get that, right?
Right, right. And it also, not only the money savings too, because we sell below designer pricing on most of it, but also just the time involved that it takes to do the estimate, the purchase orders, the acknowledgments and invoices, and checking on that. And then we give weekly status updates. And so for all our designers currently, we do weekly status updates. And so every week they know if it's been delayed, if it's on schedule. If it's delayed, we're on the phone calling to see why it's delayed, and we let the designer know. And so
And they don't have to do that.
they don't have to do that. We have it all done for them. So it's in their inbox. If not Monday, it's in their inbox on Tuesday every week.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Amy, as you move forward in your company, give me an idea of what you're seeing in the design industry and where it's going. What do you think?
Wow.
Put your futuristic hat on now.
Okay. So, if I had a crystal ball, I wish I would.
I know, right? It's all changing though. I mean,
Yeah.
everything is shifting and changing.
I know. Where is the design industry going? A lot of it is online. The design industry, I've seen it change so much. It's almost changing weekly. It's been difficult for designers because of all the online access that our clients now have.
Yes.
And so either they're going to decorate it on their own, or, there's a lot of online purchasing, or, low pricing and things like that. But I really wish I had a crystal ball and could tell you where the design industry is heading toward. But I believe design is here to stay. We all have a talent, and a consumer can go out and buy whatever at whatever great price there may be. But unless you know how to put it all together, they can be spending a lot of money and it still not look good.
I agree.
So the benefits of having a designer is to have that plan and to have that eye and to know what looks good and what doesn't look good. And so ultimately, they'll be saving money hiring a designer. So I still think in the future, I think it's all going to come around myself. I really do. I think it's going to come full circle. I think that the retail stores like ours, and it's difficult, but I think that ultimately it's going to come back around.
I would agree with that. I think two things. One, I think that the future of design is all about relationship building.
Mm-hmm.
Even it has been in the past, but I think even more so, building relationships, understanding our value, and then like you said, being able to express that value and present a service that you just cannot get when you piecemeal buy product. There's no way to do that. But it has been interesting. Of course, I send you articles and stuff like you do with me. We send stuff back and forth all the time. And it's really interesting to watch people open up retail stores, shut retail stores, or then go back and reopen a different version of a retail store. Because online at some point, we are also disconnected. We're sitting behind computers like little robots. There are times I don't want to just order it that way. There are sometimes I want to go see it and touch it and feel it and try it on and check the quality and not have to do the back and forth, so that when I buy it, I physically know that it's okay. So I do think that we, just like I have a love-hate with all things social media and online, there's a time that we loved it, we were flocking to it. And I'm starting to see this huge pushback of people going, I don't even want to get on there anymore. Like, I feel like it's encroaching on my life. I feel like it's too much. And so I just can see us shifting with almost too much technology. Not to say technology is going away. It's not. It is here to stay.
Right.
It's going to find its place, as we move forward. But really knowing and understanding our value, having the relationships in the interior design industry is what's going to help us move forward. And it's exampled by what you've done with Gather for Design.
I don't know. I think it will be interesting to see with all the online. But I do know that design is here to stay. We have so many talented designers throughout the U.S. They love what they do. Every designer that I come in contact with, they love what they do. They're passionate about it. And they want to do a good job for their clients. And so, unless you have that eye, you can go out and buy whatever. But unless you have, I really feel like the designer's place is still here, and it's going to be here forever.
I would agree with you.
Right.
And we're happy about that too, right?
I know, for sure.
So, Amy, what is one of the next profit goals in your business?
Well, just to continue to grow, especially in the trade. I just love working with the designers and building relationships. I love hearing their stories. I would say that's where I am right now. Is just continue to build, put myself out there more, and to build relationships. Continue.
Yeah, and we just said relationships are key, so that's a good thing. How can designers find out about you and the resources that you have, either your trade opportunities or Gather for Design? How can they find that?
Okay, so they can go on our website. It's Miko and Boone, Boone, home.com. And they can either call, our phone number's on there, or they can email us, whichever one. But on the contact page, they can contact us through that. Or they can just email us at design@mikoandboonehome.com.
And we'll put all that in the show notes too, so that everybody has access to that. Is there anything else you'd like to share as we wrap up today?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would love to, one of the things I like to do is inspire other designers and other entrepreneurs if I can. And, was I afraid to open the store, and was I scared? Yes, but I was also excited. And I have this thing here that my daughter gave me, and I just absolutely love it. And it says, stop being afraid of what could go wrong and start getting excited about what could go right. And when I decided to open the store, it was not just my decision, it was my husband's too. And, I don't know who's listening and what age they are or what have you, but what was the factor for us to take this risk, to invest in this business and the company, was what I had to do was I had to think about, what happens when I'm 60, 70, 80 years old, or on my dying bed? Would I have a regret of never listening to what my heart was telling me to do? And I'm so glad that I did, because then I wouldn't have had met you. I wouldn't have had met so many wonderful designers and become some friends with so many of them as well. And the relationships that I've built in the last 4.5 years. And I look forward to the new relationships that I will build. So if I can encourage anyone or inspire anyone, I would say, it's natural to be afraid, and it's also natural to be excited, but don't have regrets in the end. If I were to close my doors tomorrow, which I'm not, but if I were to close the doors a year after I open, I would not look at it as a failure. I would look at it as a success, because I had the courage to go out and do this, where a lot of people may not have that courage. They're too scared to do that. And I would encourage them to go after their dream, and if they can make it work, to do that. But and also the last would be just, if you do have a store or a business, just to try to find team members that are in the same, that are like-minded, like yourself. And for me, I've been so blessed with 5 team members that they believe in what I believe. They truly care about our clients and designers, and it's wonderful to see. It's not just me, it's all of us working together. And we have some guiding principles, but I'd love to say a couple. And
Sure.
that is, have a passion for doing the best job you can, and be enthusiastic in your job and for growth. And just go above and beyond to your customers, and be kind to one another, and treat others how you want to be treated. And I would say that's what I live by, and I know that's what my team lives by as well.
I love that. And that's exactly how it feels when you walk in or when you have contact with your team. So
yes, we've succeeded then.
we did. I know. And we're always all working towards it, right? Because
Yes.
it only takes one bad day
Yes.
to go, oh, well, I need to do over on that one. But you guys work really hard at that, and it shows. Amy, you're also going to be at High Point Market. Tell us a little bit about that, and I'll make sure I have the link, because you're going to have a really great panel.
Yeah, so excited. So Laura Thurman is a designer in Nashville, and I have been mentoring her for a couple years. And she's just such a dynamic designer. And if you guys haven't seen her work, it's just so beautiful. You should check it out. But she's going to be the narrator for this for this panel, and it's cultivating industry relationships to build your brand. And she's done a great job with that. And so she's built a relationship with myself, Amy Fleury, Jane Dagny, and Michelle Boyd. And so all of us are going to be on the panel on October 19th. It's Saturday from 12 to 1.
That sounds fantastic. So make sure you check that out, because that's in the big theater. There's a box lunch that's provided, plenty of seating, and it's not to be missed. So Amy, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. I love so much what you said, about fear and courage. And, courage is acting in the face of fear, is feeling it and acting anyway. And so thank you for sharing that. And then also for your heart for designers and for this industry, and to cultivate the relationships and to keep it moving, and by sharing and mentoring and offering what you didn't have when you started. I think I told you this the other day. That's the whole reason I do what I do when I coach. It's the whole reason I teach financials. It's the whole reason that I do everything. It's not what I had. And it took me a while to figure it out and to get it, even though I'd been educated for it, in air quotes that nobody can see but me and you. I'd had an education in it, but I just didn't apply it in the way that was best for me and my business. And I don't want anybody to feel like I felt. I don't want anybody to feel like that. It was horrible. And so if I can just, as I tell my kids, you're going to hit another pothole in the road, but if you can at least watch out for the ones I'm telling you about, it's going to be better. So you're going to make your own mistakes, but if I can save you from the ones that I made, I'm all in. Let me help you. And you have that same philosophy.
Definitely. And can I say one other thing that really helps me, and I hope my team too, because I say it to them over and over again, and that is for designers and the designers I mentor or speak to, sometimes we can all be so hard on ourselves, and maybe we don't give ourselves credit that we deserve. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the one thing that I would say to designers is to give yourself grace. Give yourself a hug if you need to. Just give yourself grace. And, we all make mistakes. We make mistakes all day long. But for me, I learned from Oprah, and I don't get to watch Oprah much back when she was on, but I will never forget it, and it changed my philosophy so much. And that is, a mistake is not a mistake if you learn from it. And I believe that. And
Right.
So don't look at it as, beating yourself up. Look at it as like, wow, I just learned something,
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's so true. I say that all the time. Pour grace on yourself. Pour some grace on yourself and move on. So same kind of thing. I love it. Well, Amy, thank you again for your time. I'm so glad we finally got to coordinate and hop on here together. And I'm excited to see you at High Point and all the wonderful things you have coming up. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
You're welcome. Take care.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks again to Amy for joining us today. It was such a pleasure to talk to her. As she and I said at the end, we probably could keep talking for hours on all kinds of things, dig into all of it. So we just may have to do that. But you don't have to be alone, and I don't want any of you to feel like there's not a place for you. The same way that Amy makes you feel at home when you walk in the door, that's the way that we have created the Designers Inner Circle over here at Scarlet Thread Consulting. Our goal is to walk with you and to journey with you and to help you become the designer in the workroom and the stager or the upholsterer that you need to be to really support you as you are building business foundations and systems and processes, and as you're learning to trust yourself and make decisions. So I would love an opportunity to talk with you, have you chat with our team. You can find out information by going to scarletthreadconsulting.com and looking at the Designers Inner Circle tab at the top in the drop down. And you can just set up a time. You can go down to the bottom and hit the contact us, fill it out, and set up a time to just talk to somebody on our team to see how we can come alongside you and help you have the business that you desire and that you dream of, so that you can work with courage and not in fear, because we know that profit doesn't happen by accident.